Thank you, Boris. $5. I got it, don't worry. Hey, well, thanks for having me. Taste it again for the first time. When they asked me to speak on the how-to stage, my first reaction was like, I'm not the guy for the how-to stage. Because I don't get terribly methodical about things in business. I tend to rely on experience and intuition. But as we kind of talked about it more, we realized that there's a method to the madness. And today, I want to talk about how to learn the right lessons as you kind of go on your journey as an entrepreneur, and how to make sure that you forget the stuff that you shouldn't be remembering. So a little more accurately, it's really about making sure it's the first time all over again when you start a new company. So a little bit about me. I've always been trying to be an entrepreneur. I grew up and could see pretty early on that I was not built for a 9-to-5 job. So, and to be honest, I was generally a pretty bad student. I could go into more detail there, but suffice to say, school wasn't my thing either. But, you know, I started to do this thing, which is something a lot of you are trying to do, which is I started to start companies. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot to go on. I grew up in a place called Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, so a small town on an island. Thank you. We got some people there. But there weren't exactly a lot of startup entrepreneurs to learn from. There was no community. There was no Startupfest. And eventually, and I'm going to take you through this journey a little bit, but I got to a point where most recently, a few years ago, I sold my company to Salesforce in California. And I want to talk about how we got there, and then why I think that that's not the end, and why I'm back operating again. So it's good to learn. We've all read a million blog posts. We've all gone to a million talks like this, and we all absorb a ton of information. But the truth is, as an entrepreneur, the learning that really deeply informs our actions time and time again is the stuff that we pick up by experiencing it. So this is the very beginning for me. This is 1997. So that's our first company. That's a 486. You know, a lot of you have had this, and that's us working on a website for, I think, the Department of Veterans Affairs. This guy here, Dan Burka, he's at Google Ventures now, and this company went on to do some pretty cool stuff. But the thing that struck me when I started to think about this talk, and, you know, well, really, like, how much have I learned? How much do I have to kind of bring to the surface here? And I realized, like, it's been 20 fucking years. It's like, you know, so it was not quite 16 when I started my first company, if you want to do the math, if you're wondering. But my mom had to sign the incorporation documents. And so we weren't just inexperienced, but we were really going at this without any instruction. No one gave us the talk. And, you know, I thought about some of the things that we did, some of the mistakes we made, and but really it struck me how many advantages we had. This was 1997. You know, we were early. We understood databases. We understood dynamic websites. You know, we didn't have the distractions. Like, I have a family now. I didn't have a family when I was 15. And we just had a certain raw talent on the team. I mean, the folks that were on that early team have gone on to do some amazing things. But we made a lot of early mistakes too. And what's funny is, you know, 20 years later, these are mistakes that are easy to make again. So there were 7 co-founders, so 7 young dudes starting a company together. And we didn't have a lot of clarity in our roles. We didn't think about what our real value to the company was. We just all knew that we could do stuff. We all knew we were excited. We all knew we wanted to work together. And none of us had any actual experience, but more important than that, we had no vesting. So when I got fired from the company, which is what happened, I had all of my equity. So the evenly split, and there was no vesting, and we really didn't have any of the kind of outside support or any of the kind of community ecosystem you have today. So it's a little context for how things started, and things change over time. So fast forward 8 years, and I started this company called Firestoker. Now, a few of you in the audience might remember when this was kind of my baby, my thing. And it was about that time I started to realize, like, I've started a few companies, I've fallen flat on my face a few times. I think I need to start trying to get better at this each time. I need to not just walk straight into an inferno of insanity. And so there was this really great blog post. It was when Mark Andreessen was writing on I think a Stanford blog or something, and he posted this triangle. So these are not conjoined triangles. So there's no Silicon Valley hypotenuse here, but he shared something that I thought was pretty cool, and that's the way he looked at new companies. So as you guys are kind of going through your journey and you're thinking about the things that are important to you as you put together your founding team, the thing that comes up time and time again when I look at investments, when I look at companies that I might get involved with, when I look at what my friends are doing, I go back to this framework. And so back in 2004, this is kind of like what it looked like for me. The market didn't exist yet for enterprise social networking. The product was a complete bag of shit. And the team wasn't really nearly as committed as we thought. And so today, yes, I heard that. Today, whenever I meet new companies or I sit down and someone pitches me on something, there are times when this is the conclusion that is staring me in the face. This is a terrible product. This market does not exist yet, or this team is not committed. And usually if you have 2 out of the 3, you're doing pretty well. But again, the things that I did all over again. So what were the advantages? Well, we definitely saw the future. There were a couple of billion-dollar companies that went on to be formed doing what we thought we were doing. We made something, an early prototype that people could see, so I was getting a little better. The product made a little bit of sense. And we built some amazing relationships that went on to pay big dividends, and I'll talk about that. But again, we did a bunch of stuff wrong over and over and over again. So we moved really, really slowly. This is something I would never, ever do again. We didn't release nearly often enough, and I know I see a lot of companies now who just aren't on a tight enough release schedule. And we didn't listen to our customers in any sort of meaningful way. We really tried to educate our customers and tell them what they needed. We never listened to them and reacted or considered their feedback in a meaningful way. And then we didn't invest enough in our early customers, who included some pretty amazing brands and things like that, but we never really focused on making them successful. So now, get to the meat of this. All of a sudden, it's 2008, and I get this phone call. And it's from a guy, his name's Jeff Dotchis. So if you were around in the late 90s, you probably remember a company called Razorfish. Razorfish was the darling of the first .com era. They made a movie about it, where I think Ethan Hawke played Jeff, or one of those actors, I don't know. Again, so Jeff calls, he says, hey, I love what you're doing. I've got $50 million. Why don't you come down to Austin? And we'll do it, but we'll do it right. And we'll do it again. So by that time, Jeff and a couple other co-founders who were top of their game in the field, 4 of us come to Austin with a blank slate and and a pretty cool idea for how we think we're going to change the world, and a lot of money to make it happen. Well, had I brought up my little conjoined triangle here, I could have seen that there were some problems that were arising. So we had. I'm really good at this. This is like, if there was an iPhone app for the clicker, it would be. Okay, so team was kind of amazing. The market was like exploding ahead of itself. So between the team and the market, to be honest, we couldn't tell if we were being successful or not, because just things were happening like crazy. And when you've got the money in the bank, it's really easy to spend it. So I moved down to Austin about 2008, and didn't end up staying there for too long. But we decided it would be a good idea to get out and buy some companies. So we didn't have a product yet. There's a handful of us on the team, and we just started flying around and meeting all these interesting companies. And it was kind of a surreal experience. You know, I would fly down to Austin usually on a Monday, and there was a direct flight from Toronto and I would get in, we'd spend Monday and Tuesday kind of in strategy meetings and like a lot of meetings, and not really talking about product. And then we'd hop on a plane and we'd go and we'd literally look to start buying companies. We ended up buying about 6 of them, but it doesn't matter how much stuff you pile into the company, how many of these entrepreneurs you add, and how many people you bring into the fold. It's hard to get away from a big missing piece, and in our case, it was the product. So eventually I came to the conclusion that that's not something I wanted to do again, not even close. So decided to take some time off and kind of go back again. Okay, I gotta stop. I can't keep doing it this way, and really wanted to think hard this time about how I started this company. So started this company in Halifax called GoInstant, and really it was a different story, and it was a different story for a big reason. It was that we had finally kind of found our path in terms of how we were going to build this company, what we wanted the product to look like. And so, you know, as we kind of pulled things together, we were able to hit on something, and I think I learned my most valuable lesson, which is that timing is really everything. And when you've got a product that people love, you've got a team that you feel is special, and you've got a market that's growing, it's time to really hit the gas. It's time to really double down on it. And I think a lot of folks probably look at that and they're like, okay, that's obvious, dude. Like, if you've got all these things, of course you've got to go. But I think the thing that's not as obvious, and the thing that I spent those 15 years learning, was that when you don't have all those pieces, actually it's often really difficult to make them appear out of thin air. So I kind of, at one point, this came off something I found next to my computer, a handwritten piece of paper that I had kind of written down what I was going to do differently this time. And it was interesting to go back and look at it, because I tried to think about the things I used to care about. And I used to care about being really early. Like, I wanted people to be like, oh shit, man, this is like, you're ahead of this. This is super cool. You are like so far ahead of everyone else. And to be honest, I wanted people to think like I was smart, like I knew something that they didn't. And I constantly, as an entrepreneur, look to be reassured. And you know, through blogging, through having your friends tell you how great you are, all that stuff, the social proof of being an entrepreneur was incredibly important to me. And I cared how sexy and exciting the product was a lot more than the benefit it provided to our customers. So what did I do differently? What did we do differently that made this company what it was? The number one thing I figured out was I had to move quick. I think as a kind of a Canadian entrepreneur who didn't really feel an urgency in my life to kind of move quickly. I finally realized the rest of the world was moving really quickly. And so we incorporated this company around January 1st, 2011, and very quickly got out, built a prototype, and we're in Halifax, by the way. And in 2011, there weren't a lot of people in Canada really raising rounds in the Valley. And it was kind of, basically the common knowledge was you raise money in Canada and you do your seed round at like between a $3 and maybe a $4 million pre-money valuation. And at the time I was like, I don't want to be like limited by the fact that we're in this geography and that we have these certain type of investors in our backyard. So we got out and we raised a round almost entirely in the Valley from people like Reid Hoffman and Freestyle Capital and Baseline Capital, Greylock, Yuri Milner. I don't know, does anyone remember that name? Does that ring a bell? And we raised about 1.7 million, and we did it at a $6 million pre-money valuation, which back then was a big deal. I was really fucking excited. And we did not waste time. We launched that thing. I say launched. We announced that product at TechCrunch Disrupt that year. So I'm living the HBO Silicon Valley dream here. This is the full meal deal. And the coolest thing about that experience was I realized actually how important it was, how it was just to be there and be in the mix. So after Disrupt, we did our presentation. I came down on the floor, and someone from Apple Corp Dev like showed up and was literally like, you need to come out to the Apple campus tomorrow. Like, we'll have a car pick you up, and we want to talk about using your stuff. Of course, being a massive company, none of that ever came to fruition, but I did end up getting a little tour around their headquarters. And then, not that much time goes by. We did a few things in here, and Ben Yoskovitz is sitting in the back, and when I say a few things, he realized, we did a couple of things in the middle. And of course, and then out of the blue one day, we get an email, and it's from Mark Benioff, and the subject was Aloha, and it ended with Mahalo. And he basically said, hey, come hang out. Let's talk. So a total whirlwind of activity. And in the Q&A, if you want to get into some of the details, I'm happy to. But a few short months later, we sell the company to Salesforce for $76 million US, which was an amazing outcome for the whole team in 18 months. And shit, yeah, that was fast. But really, it was like 15 years of like banging my head against the wall. I mean, like not paying the rent, or like taking out a credit card and writing one of those checks that they give you with the credit card so that I could like put gas in the car that week. And to so many of the people around me, they saw the narrative that this was like an overnight 18-month success, which it was. I mean, but at the same time, I definitely got a feeling like, oh God, like I didn't waste the last 15 years of my life, which up until that point, I have to say, I was really starting to question. And as a university dropout, you limit your options for producing any sort of stability for your family. So, but hey, it was still a lot of luck. And I think the thing I learned, and I've seen this before, where you look at an entrepreneur and you're like, Jesus, man, those guys, they got lucky. Whether it was a customer that kind of fell into their lap, or an acquisition that seems to come out of nowhere. But the thing I learned is how easy it is to screw up luck. So this is where I think kind of 15 years of screwing up luck, messing up customer engagements, having products that don't move nearly as quickly as they can, comes to help. And so the takeaway I learned was, more than anything on that triangle, the Andreessen's triangle, is the idea that when luck comes around, you better be ready for it and you better know it's there. And it's funny, I talk to entrepreneurs, and sometimes something really cool will come up, and they'll want to know, like, what should we do? Like, how should we handle this? Should we go after this customer? Should we talk about this deal, this acquisition offer? And my response is usually pretty simple, which is like, do you feel like, were you lucky? Like, was this cool that they called you? Or did you feel like this was something that you didn't even expect? And if you kind of saw it coming, I think you've got just enough of an understanding to take advantage of it. So now I kind of look at where I am. So post-acquisition, spent 3 years at Salesforce, left in November, and really have started to think what I want to do this time. And the thing I hear over and over again is like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to retire? You're going to just hang out? You're going to like play golf or something? I hate golf. And it took me a while. So I took some time off and really thought about what I wanted to do. And you guys probably heard like Toby talking this morning or yesterday. And there's some amazing entrepreneurs here who have built companies that have hundreds of employees, and they're doing, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And I realized like I actually hadn't accomplished. So in this 20 years, I hadn't really done what I had set out to do, which was to build actually a great company, something that I felt like could last. So now I'm focused not on 18 months of execution, but I want to figure out how I build a company that I can spend 18 years executing on. I want to build something, and maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But I'm back to the drawing board. I'm back to the conjoined triangles of success, and I'm thinking about it, and I want to make sure that the team is one that's been there before, and we've got that. We've got a killer group together. The market is something that's big. I want it to be mind-bogglingly large, and that it's not just tech. I want to build a product that kind of has an impact across the business for our customers. So, long story short, you may feel like you're kind of, whether it's your first time or whether you've been back at this, you may feel like you're kind of doing the same thing over and over, and you may feel like you're not learning a lot all the time. But at the end of the day, when luck comes around, when that amazing customer lands, or you have that perfect idea to make the product what it needs to be, or you see that little opening in the market, or a killer hire that comes by, and you're not sure if you should go for them, I think the thing that I learned after all that time is that you've got to take that luck, and you've got to just go for it. So that's it, guys. That's all I got for you today. But thank you very much, and we'll do some questions. And it's extremely hot up here. Do we, any questions? Or
right, let's take a couple questions. My first question, are the conjoined triangles of Jack Barker influencing
I need to figure out what's on the hypotenuse, man. But when I do,
it's always compromise.
When I do, this thing will go multi-dimensional, I promise it.
All right, we're going to take time for 2 questions. Anyone interested in asking? Whoa, here we go. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? I'm pretty quick.
All right. Yeah, so you're talking about how the 3 sides of the triangle, the team, the market, the product, and let's say you have all of that. When's the time to pull the trigger, get investment into your company?
So, I'm a fan of, like, I consider fundraising to be a huge distraction in a company. Like, I find when I'm out fundraising, I'm talking to a lot of people who aren't my customers. So they're smart people. They're capable of understanding the market. They're capable of understanding the product. They can see the potential in the team, but they're not the kind of end user. And I feel like if I spend a month or 2 months or 3 months fundraising, by the time I come out of that process, I have such a skewed view of my own product and my own company. Like, I've taken all this input from people who aren't ultimately going to be the buyer. So I consider it a big distraction. It's not about your investors being bad people. It's just that the process really sucks the way we have it set up. So I'm a fan of doing it early, and I'm a fan of doing it with folks who probably have more to offer than just some money. So a good example, in my most recent round, I ended up asking 2 people to co-lead it. And the reason was one of them actually has crazy experience on the enterprise side, which is part of what we're doing. And the other, it has a ton of experience with marketplaces, so building two-sided marketplaces. And of all the people I talked to and of all the people I spent time with, these 2 understood some part of the business. Now, did each of them totally get what we're doing and where we're going? No, but in this case, I felt like together they had a lot to offer, and I got out and did it early. So I would actually say get out and do it early, but product. What do you have? What do you have? Where are you going to end up with valuation? Where are you going to end up on terms? And a lot of it has a lot to do with the stage you're at as an entrepreneur. If you're a first-time entrepreneur, getting out early might mean raising $50,000 or getting a $50,000 grant or something like that. And if you're a second, third, fourth, fifth, or an exited entrepreneur, early might mean, a couple $1,000,000 on whatever terms you kind of want. And so the game is different, but you have to figure out what early means for you. But I'm not a fan of waiting personally. Now there's people in this audience who have waited and have built amazing products and have been able to raise money on incredible terms, and they could tell you should probably wait until you have traction. So I think you got to realize how you're going to execute.
Hey, we got one more question. We got one. All right, here we go. Hold on.
Hello, thank you. So this company that you're hoping to create, or that you are creating right now, do you think you'll be able to keep it in Canada over the next 18 years if you get your dream?
Yeah, I struggle with that on a couple levels. So we're based in Halifax, so 400,000, 450,000 people, and we're in Halifax is in Canada, in case you didn't know. And so we're not in Silicon Valley, and we're not in Toronto, we're not in Montreal, we're not in Vancouver. And I have spent a lot of time thinking about that. So one thing we're doing is we are from the beginning building what we call a remote-ready company. So we're not distributed yet. But we're doing a couple of things. So one example is you're not allowed to have private chats in Slack. No one's allowed to have a private chat. And in fact, you're not just not allowed to have a private chat in Slack, you're not allowed to send emails to each other. And if you do send emails to each other, everyone on the team gets the email. So if I email Ian, that's an alias that will go to everyone on the team. So we are trying to kind of violently eliminate all of the silos in the company, because I have a feeling that whenever scale becomes our focus, we have to have a different kind of company. We're not just going to go out into our local market and recruit like crazy and bring the talent in. We're going to have to go out and bring our company a lot to where the talent is. And to be honest, I think I don't think you get away with it anywhere in Canada, and I think Shopify is an amazing example. Like the way if you walk into an office in Montreal, in one of their offices, or in Toronto, or in Ottawa, or in any of the other cities they're in, you feel like you're walking into Shopify. Like you could think it's the headquarters, because they treat every city like an important kind of central part to the company. And I think there's a lot to learn as a Canadian entrepreneur from that, because if Shopify was in San Francisco, I don't know that they would have to have been so good at building these other offices, but I think they're the best in the world at it right now. So I want to be more like them, and less like, I could name a few, but less like the companies, there's the kind of Twitter thing, must be willing to relocate to San Francisco. We're not going to get away with must be willing to relocate to Halifax. So I do think you can. I think people have done it. And I want to learn. I need to learn the things, hopefully I need to learn, I should say, the things that those entrepreneurs have done. Because the playbook is getting written. The playbook on scaling tech companies in Canada, we might be in chapter 1, but it's definitely getting written. So.
All right, let's give a huge round of applause.
Okay. Cheers, thanks.
All right, Jevon killed it.